Hi, everybody. It's Stacy Salon here with another edition of what's going to be happening at Data Driven this year at 2021. And today I'm with Tim Howard from Vish, and you're the Chief Innovation Officer and Head of Customer Success. Big time.
Correct.
That's a big responsibility.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is, but it's a lot of fun.
And we thank you very much for sponsoring Data Driven. You all have been sponsors for the last couple of years, and you always bring great information about one of the most important services in the salon, which is hair color. And while it brings in a lot of revenue, it is not always as profitable as salon owners think it is, correct?
That's right. It's often hidden, right? So, as we've grown the hair color business in salons, I think the stat was something like in 1950s, 8% of women got their hair colored. And now we're somewhere like 90% of women or 85% women getting their hair colored today. And we've grown it from a $5 service to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars for these elaborate, beautiful colors. But we haven't, as we've innovated our technique, we haven't innovated managing the business at the same capacity or at the same rate. So that's where we stepped in.
Now, there's a couple of things that go into that profitability, and one of the solutions that Vish tries to solve is color waste. And talk a little bit about that and how that works in the salon.
So I guess that's where the journey really started with Vish. My previous life, I'm still a hairdresser, but I was a hairdresser, salon owner, 2 salons, and I worked for a hair company as a global educator. And, I ran, my salon wasn't big. It was a 10-chair salon. And when, cash would get tight, I knew where it was going, right? I know it cost me $1 to do a haircut in terms of products, sundries. Hair color is where all the revenue was coming from. So started looking, and when cash flow was tight, I'd look over at the sink and I would see a sink full of bowls of color. And I knew my inventory was just out of control and everybody had free reign with it. So Vish started out as a project to really identify what the waste is and get rid of the waste. And how we do that is when I take my color bowl and I mix color, I do that through Vish. I put it on the scale, we interact with an iPad, we mix color, super precise, 1/10 of a gram. And then when we're done with our bowl, instead of just putting it in the sink, you take the 3 seconds, you lay it on top of a scale, calculates what's left, reduces the waste from the formula, updates the client record so that you know how much to make for that client next time. Not prohibitive. If you need to make more, make less, you still can do that, but it gives you a starting point. Because what would happen in my salon with paper records is I would go and I would create my formula, do a 40 grams formula, 40 gram product, 40 gram developer. I would write it down at the end, what I use, 40 grams. I didn't ever think, did I really use 40? I would just record where I started. So this way, we're able to right away, from one visit to the next visit, we're able to save salons a ton of money, which in turn saves the customers money, and which in turn saves the environment from all that harmful waste.
And I think the eye-opening thing, because you all also connect Vish to the front desk and the charging of the client of what color was used. The surprising things for most owners was that a lot of their stylists were either giving services like a glaze away or we'll throw in a few highlights, and that was not being recorded and actually charged to the client.
No. It's funny, as a hairdresser, I'm sympathetic to that. And I always make the analogy that if a chef cooked your food, served you the food, asked you how it was, then took your bill at the end, the price would fluctuate too.
Right.
Because as a hairdresser, as I do my work, I'm looking at you for validation that you liked it, and then I'm asking you for money for it. So if the toner wasn't quite right, or I'm just simply busy and I'm double booked and it wasn't booked, the toner wasn't booked or a glaze wasn't booked, the amount of times that I would watch my customer leave and I go, oh, I forgot to update the toner that I did. So that happens modestly about, we'd say about 20% of the time that the service is just missed. But before Vish, what salons weren't able to do, and they would have a pricing structure in place. They would say, okay, if you use an extra bowl of color, charge X. But there's no way to monitor that. And again, we have hairdressers that, are not malicious. They just have a good relationship with their customer or feel that this person can't afford another $30 for this. So the salon would absorb the cost. So in the industry, there's 3 ways to price. There's the all-inclusive pricing, which is pretty standard, which we've been doing forever, which is changing. Then there's the separate parts and labor altogether. So it's $100 for the service plus whatever product is used. And then the other model is include some product with the service. So if I'm getting a balayage, we usually recommend typically about 3 scoops of bleach. So, anywhere between 75 and 90 grams worth of bleach would be included in that service. And that would do the average person's hair. If somebody had excessive hair, longer roots, or an infrequent customer and you need to do more work, well, then we will calculate what that overage is. And we typically do it with a markup. A standard markup like you would a bottle of shampoo. Because the philosophy there is if you're investing money in that inventory like you do your retail products, it's the same thing for your hair color. You should see a return on that, not just tied into the labor. And then what ends up happening is salons are able to generate this extra stream of revenue, which they were just giving away before. And it makes a massive difference for salons. I had a meeting with a salon just yesterday, and they were telling me that when they start with us, they're often a bit hesitant to change any of their processes.
Right.
Reweighing and weighing is enough. So we take it easy with them in the beginning, and we give them our recommendations. And they were quite confident that their voluntary tell the front desk when you've added a bowl was working. So we compared numbers at the end of the 30 days, and they calculated $1,300. And additional bowl charges went to the front desk. We calculated $8,700.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
a huge difference.
Yeah. So month over month, it's a massive number. And and by putting a standard markup, so let's say an extra scoop of bleach generally costs the customer an extra $5. That's all it is. Customers don't notice it. And if they do, they're fine because they know they have thick hair. They know they haven't been in 3 months instead of 2 months. So it's very easy to explain. But as hairdressers, we have a hard time asking for money. So, that's where the coaching comes in.
Well, and I imagine after also coming back from the pandemic, it was very hard to tell, how much color a client needed because you're not seeing her. You missed her for her regular appointments, and now she's got a huge regrowth.
And she's been doing it on her own, maybe.
If you weren't measuring in that, and you're just mixing away in the back, like tripling it because you think you need more, you're not necessarily capturing that cost.
No. And we actually saw that exact number when the salons reopened from COVID in North America. It was 2 to 3 times more color being consumed, and the salons were absorbing the cost. Right, just cost of doing business, which is crazy. And the same thing happens because when you have a static menu, and as a salon owner, going through the process of changing your menu, like repricing everything, having that conversation with your customer, updating your website, if you do it in a printed form, all that it's a lot of work to do it. So we don't do it often. And if a manufacturer increases the price of color by 5%, well, if we didn't do that for 2 years, that's, then the salon is going to just keep absorbing that until it would change its menu. But the day a price increase comes out now, we can adjust it in the system right away. So the salon is immediately recovering that 5% and passing it off to the customer. And again, not changing there's a lot of salons when we look at toners, for example, and they're historically undercharged and not very much profit, if any. And they always say, should we raise the price of the toner by $30 or $20? But that doesn't get rid of the problem because you're just inflating it. So your margin is a little bit better. So what we recommend is maybe increase it, maybe keep it where it is, and just introduce the product charges so that it's customized for each customer. So, because I shouldn't pay the same as you for a toner.
Right. Well, I can't wait to dig into this at Data Driven. And I think the data on color is fascinating, and the data that you all record and are able to tell people about their businesses is just really eye-opening. So we are excited to have you at Data Driven. For everybody out there, Data Driven this year is co-located with America's Beauty Show in Chicago, September 12th to the 13th. And to find out more about the schedule and tickets, go to datadrivensalon.com. And Tim, I thank you so much for sharing a little
My
bit
pleasure.
of what you're going to dig into at Data Driven.
Thank you. I can't wait to be there.